Welcome back for part 2 of the Tech Cube tutorial. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure you check that out. I'll have a link here on the video and in the description for you guys. So we're going to continue with adding material to our cube. We're going to animate the first cube, then we're going to offset the animations for the other ones. We're going to add some emissive edge lines, and then we're going to finish off by rendering everything into a PNG sequence and then comping it back inside of Blender. All right, let's get into it. So first thing we're going to want to do is add the material to the cube. I'm just going to isolate this real quick by hitting backslash or the forward slash on our numpad. The only slash on your numpad. And I'm going to go into look dev mode, which I think I'm already in. Perfect. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the object material editor. I'm just going to stick to principled BSDF on the original side here. Or what's already there. I'm going to go mix shader, bring that in, and I'm going to add in a glossy BSDF. Just keep it simple. I don't think I need to add another principled BSDF. And what I'm going to do from there is bring in a color ramp. I'm going to bring the color into the factor, and then I'm going to bring in Voronoi texture, which is super hard to say, and this is even harder to say, intensity, cells, and distance Chebyshev. And I'm going to hit Control T and bring in a mapping and texture coordinate, and we should see this cool, it's almost like a tech camo looking procedural effect on the cube. I'm going to make sure I tighten up these values here on my color ramp until I get something like that. And the reason we want to bring in the mapping and the texture coordinate is then we could just kind of rotate these and get it to a point where we're happy with how it looks. It goes a long way for editing the effect that you're going for. I'm going to upscale it. I'm going to go with something like that. If you want to copy my values exactly, we got black at pause 2.48 or 0.248, and we got white at pause 0.376, scale 9.5, cells, Chebyshev, Voronoi, and all that. So go ahead, pause the video, copy those. And now what I want, which I think I'm getting the opposite effect, is I want the marks from the Voronoi texture to be glossy, and I want everything else to just be kind of like a matte default color of the cube. So I'm just going to switch the position of my glossy and my principled BSDF, and I'll just move these like that so they're not crisscrossed. I want to make the roughness definitely more like a lower value. A lower value means more reflective, and a higher one means less reflective. And I want to make this a little bit more matte. And I also don't want this to be white. I want this to be kind of like a gunmetal gray, closer to black. So then we get something like that. And you can see here, as you move the camera and you get to rotating, you start seeing some cool reflections on the HDR that's on the look dev. And if we go back into our rendered view from the HDR that we put in from last time, you'll see the same kind of effect going on. And now if we hop out of our local view by hitting the slash on our numpad again, you will see such. And same deal, super cool. All right, so now what we're going to want to do is we're going to add rotation to our cubes. We already have rotation on our camera when it's coming in, and you're not really going to be able to notice that the cube is rotating until the camera stops rotating or doing its animation. Then you're going to notice that the cubes are also doing their thing. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to create a parent for this cube in our light, which we haven't done yet. So I'm going to go Shift A, empty plane axis. I'm going to scale that up. I'm going to go F2 and rename this. I'm going to call this cube parent. And I'm going to go to my hierarchy here. I'm going to make sure I got my point. And I'm going to make sure I got my cube use. and I'm going to drag, click and drag, and I'm going to hold shift over my cube parent, and that's going to drop and set that as a parent. So now if you see me, ooh, that didn't work. Let's try that again. I'm going to Control Z back. I don't know what happened there. Point, cube use. I'm holding shift drop to set that parent. So the light got parented. Let me just do that with this one too. Okay, now we should have exactly what we're looking for here. So now both of those objects, the cube and the light, have been parented to my cube.parent, so I just have to animate the cube parent, and then everything else should animate as well. And we're just going to do this really quickly and easily. I'm going to hit Shift F6 to go into my graph editor here. And what I'm going to do is at frame 1, I'm going to just do these one by one. I'm going to insert a single keyframe here. I'm going to make sure I have it selected. I'm going to hit N to bring up the F-curve modifiers and view tabs here on the right-hand side. I'm going to go to modifiers. I'm going to add a modifier, and I'm just going to use a generator of 1, and I'm going to say use influence, and I'm going to make sure I pull this all the way back, and let's just start with 0.01 and see what kind of effect we have going on here. So let's hit space. It's spinning. It's spinning still a little bit too fast for me. So maybe I'll just use a value of 0.8 here. And sometimes I notice that it bugs out, like it feels like the values haven't changed. So I just click use influence and click it back in again. And then I hit space, and then we should see it. That should be cool. 0.8 and an influence of 0.01. And now I'm going to do the same thing for my Y and X here. So I'm going to go back to the start of my time frame or my timeline, insert single keyframe, Y Euler. And what I could actually do is go here, and if I click on this, that will copy that modifier. I could just go back to the Y Euler and then hit this other one here, and that will paste that modifier. And let's hit space and see what we got. Cool. And now let's do the same thing for X, insert single keyframe, paste it in, hit space. Cool. So we got this like cool double rotating effect where it looks like the cube isn't really rotating until you hit the end of your camera animation. So even that's still kind of fast for me. So maybe let's go 0.4 on everything. 0.4. Again, you could have copied and pasted after changing one. I did it the long way. And let's hop back to the start and let's check again. Actually, let's not even hop into our camera. Let's just check from here. Oh, and let's click the use influence again because it feels like nothing really changed. There we go. It's moving a lot slower, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So now that we have the animation for one of our cubes, and our camera is set to orthographic, which really is, it's literally the opposite of perspective. It's really hard to tell depth when you're in an orthographic view space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this bottom window in half, and I'm going to make sure this one's on rendered. I'm just going to hop to frame 400, hop into our camera, and that's when we're zoomed in, and we pretty much, we hack it. We kind of fake depth and perspective in an orthographic view space. So I just, let me do that again. Select the parent, go to your hierarchy, hold Control Shift, and if you left click on it while it's already selected, it will deselect it. Then make sure you click it again, and it'll select the parent and it will select all the children. Then you have to hit Shift D to duplicate all of that. So now I have cube parent.001. If I just left click on that, that should just give me the parent. And now I can move this. It'll move everything together. And I just move it to the back, and I scale it. I literally scale it. And we're just faking perspective really in an orthographic view space. Then I'm going to do the same thing on cube parent 001. I'm going to hit Shift D And I'm going to move that over to the left, move that down a little bit, maybe scale it, move it even back further, scale it some more. And we do something like that. Now if we hit space again, they're all animating, but they're all animating the same. So we're just going to easily go in and offset these manually. I think there is ways to do it a little bit more efficiently, but I haven't found out how to do so yet. And as soon as I do, I will let you guys know. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make, I think the Z and X on this one, I'm going to make them negative values. And I'm just going to make sure I double click the use influence again to reset it. See X and Z. I'm going to make this negative as well. Hit the use influence. If I hit space, these should be rotating differently. Perfect. And now I'm going to do the same for this. I'm going to keep the Z the same, and I'm going to make the Y negative. I'm going to make the X. I'll keep the X positive, but I'll make it 0.3, and I'll make the Z negative. Make sure I hit influence on all of these again. And if I hit play, now they're all rotating a different way. Perfect. So we have our cubes animating, and the last thing we really need to do is we're going to add in the tech lines. And this part is kind of complicated, yet kind of not complicated. I'm just going to clean up my viewport here real quick, making sure I save along the way. And what we're going to do is go to our original cube, our cube parent here. I'm just in object mode. I'm going to hit Shift D. I'm going to duplicate it. So now I have cube use and I have cube.use.003. I'm just going to rename this cube.wireframe. And what I'm going to do is in our modifiers, I'm going to add a modifier. I'm going to go wireframe. And I'm going to hit numpad again, backslash /numpad, the only slash under numpad. And I'm going to take the thickness to 0. And the rest of this stuff doesn't really matter. And I'm going to hit apply. And this is just a quick way to get all the edges without having to worry about deleting anything. And the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm just going to hit tab, and I'm just going to make sure that we have no double verts. So there's no more remove vertices here. I'm in edit mode, Control V, there's no more remove edges. It's now merge vertices and by distance. And we see down here I've removed 56,000 verts. And what I want to do now is I have all these edges, and I want to actually convert these into a curve. So you hit Alt-C or go convert to, and curve from mesh or text. So now we have this curve. And what we do from here is if I go into, let me just get rid of my viewport. I'm still selected on my cube wireframe, and now I'm in a curve. I'm in our curve panel, and I'm going to go to our geometry, depth. I'm going to increase it a little bit so we see what we got going on here. It's pretty much exactly like the wireframe. It's almost indistinguishable until you zoom in a little bit. And you can see that these are rounder. They're like cylinders instead of cubes, I would say. That's almost the difference. And that's also because of the resolution. I could turn the resolution down, and we practically have exactly what our original wireframe modifier would do. Except the cool thing about this now is here at the bevel, we have a bevel start and a bevel end. And what we do is we can actually do a really cool animation. So we could have something start like this, and as the timeline progresses, we could go from end 0 to 1, and that creates that really cool animation that we get going that you saw in the video. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So let us go back out of local view, and we have our cube wireframe. I'm just going to re-enable our overlays, and I'm going to split this again. I'm going to go into our material editor, cube wireframe. I'm going to go to our materials here. I'm going to hit new. I'm going to go emissive wireframe. I'm going to get rid of the principled BSDF, and I'm going to put in our emission, hook that up to our surface. If we go to rendered and have a look, now if I animate the cube wireframe from N0 to 1 and just disable the overlays again, you're going to actually see it come in. And that's exactly what we're going to do in a moment here. I'm just going to change the color here from white. I'm going to go from white to yellow, or maybe I'm going to pick the same color as our point light and just tweak it a little bit here. So I'm going to go color, hex code, and I'm going to go back to our cube wireframe, and I'm going to paste that into our hex code. I'm going to increase the strength. Let's go about 16. And maybe I'm just going to maybe brighten it a little bit. Ooh, that is, ooh, oh, no. And I'm just gonna brighten it like that. Okay, that's what I was looking for. From here, I'm just gonna enable the bloom, and now we get something that looks way cooler because bloom makes everything look cool. Let's go ahead and enable screen space reflections, ambient occlusion. Nah, we don't need ambient occlusion. Let's just do screen space reflections, half ray trace, trace precision. Honestly, actually, we don't even really need it. So let's not do stuff we don't need. And that's already starting to look pretty cool. And we could preview what we got going on here. Let's just see. Yeah. So as the cubes are spinning, we're going to animate that. All right, so we have everything moving. We get to 400, and then at 400, okay, so let's go back to 0. Go to our bevel depth. We're on the cube.wireframe. We're going to make sure our end, we set a keyframe here. Go to 400. Set a keyframe again. So we will see that we have we have a value of 0 on end from 0 to 400. And then from 400 to, let's say like 545 or something. 545, we will have an end value of 1. Cool. Let's get a quick preview of this. I'm not sure if that displayed completely correctly. I feel like it lagged, and then let me just do that again. Yeah, it totally lagged. So pretty much at 400, right when the base kind of drops, that's when we should see the wireframe start to animate. And the second playthrough hit it on the head perfectly. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And we could add the depth of field. So why not? Let's do it. That is pretty much the last step. We can't leave that out. The way I did the depth of field on the previous video, or the video that I showed you guys at the beginning of this, I went to our render tab here, made sure I had depth of field enabled. I went to our empty, I went sphere, and I called this one camera DOF, depth of field handler. And it's at our object origin. And make sure you select the camera, go to depth of field, focus on object. We're not going to make it focus on the cube. We're actually going to make it focus on our DOF handler. So let's see what that looks like. Hop into rendered. Make sure we turn off our overlays here and turn the f-stop all the way down. And we've lost some frames, definitely. That's starting to lag a little bit. And pretty much what I did for this is I had our DOF handler. I made it start at a value of, I believe, 15. I just brought it up. And if we go back to our rendered view here, You can see it's really, really blurry at 15. But then as the camera zooms in and it reaches 400 on our timeline, I just animated it down from 15 to 0. And if we go to 400, so we can see this a little bit better. At 400, it was 0, but I don't think I had my f-stop value so low. I had it something like this, maybe 0.4. 0.4. And let's go to our render settings here, and let's actually go down to our color management, and let's go from base contrast to high contrast. There we go. That's a little bit better. And I think what we need to do at this point as well is, because we decreased the size of everything, a smaller light at the same strength value is actually going to be brighter than a bigger light, and that's exactly what's going on. So we need to decrease the value of these lights a little bit because they're in the distance. So that's our first one here. So I went from 2 watts to 500. Is that milliwatts? MW, small m, big W. And let's do the same for our other point light here. Should be even a little bit dimmer. Cool. And I think I could take this one up a little bit. Let's go to 750 on the one that's a little bit closer on the... Oh, no. 750 M big W. There we go. Yeah, that's starting to look pretty good. So let's just do the animation on our DOF handler, and we could pretty much call it and render out and then bring everything back in. Let's see, our DOF handler. Let's just select it in our hierarchy. DOF handler, I'm gonna bring this up to 15 at frame 1, perfect, insert single keyframe, and then at 400 here, make sure we bring that down to 0 and insert single keyframe. So we should see it's moving down gradually with everything else. Hop into the camera, go to rendered, turn off our overlay. And we could definitely clean it up a little bit. You see some fuzziness here. That's definitely due to the location of our DOF handler, but you pretty much from this point get the gist of it. And we are just going to render out. Let's stick to standard 1920 by 1080. We got 24 FPS. We're ending at 912, starting at 1. Our output is just a PNG, compression of 15%. That's all good to me. We're going to pick the folder for our output, and for me, that is going to be D, tutorial assets, tech box, outputs, tutorial sequence. I'm going to hit accept, and I just want all these images to have a name of sequence, and I'm going to go underscore, and it's going to take care of the rest for me. It's going to go sequence underscore 000 all the way up to 912. I'm going to hit enter. I'm just going to save real quick. So I got that saved up. And now what you're going to want to do is go to the render and render animation, or hit Control F12. And I will see you guys after I'm done rendering this out. All right, welcome back, everybody. You should be done rendering your sequence out by now. And what we're going to do is just quickly hop into a new Blender scene. I'm just going to save real quick. Let's go to General, and we are just going to go to our workspace tabs here, video editing, video editing. We're going to make sure we set our endpoint to what we ended at, which should be 912. We're going to go Shift A, sound, bring in that previous sound that we had. That's the song. And then I'm going to go image sequence, and I'm going to find my sequence. For me, I'm just going to take my promo sequence here. And if we hit space, perfect. We start seeing what's going on. And now to finalize what our output is going to be, just go to our output again. We're going to go from file format to FFmpeg video. Encoding container is going to be MP4. We're going to keep it at H.264. We're going to go with high quality, encoding speed good, audio. We're going to go AAC, and we're going to hit that 320 for the bit rate. And I'm just going to pick my folder here. I'm going to keep it in the promo sequence. I'm going to create a new folder in the promo sequence, call it video output. I'm just going to say at the end of this, tech underscore cube video underscore 1080p. Enter, and then we're just going to hit Control F12 again to render that out, and I will see you guys again shortly. If you guys stuck with me till the end, thank you so much for watching. If you use this tutorial and post something on Instagram, make sure to tag me in it. I would love to see what you guys came up with and just connect. Thank you to 40K once again for letting me use his music in the video. You guys should definitely check out his page. He's got awesome tutorials on how to use Logic, and he's got crazy beats. If this helped you out in any way, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to push something new every week for you guys, so stay tuned. I appreciate the views. I appreciate the love and support. And as always, steady up.